Briggs, the turbo BMW car too. They're just warming up now for the start. Jeff Barnes Monza, Mick Monterosso Escort, Rex Muldoon Mazda, George Carter Datsun, Luigi De Luca Anglia, Wayne Sutton Escort. On the last row of the grid, Ken Janssen Escort, Jeff Watson Corolla and Peter Finch in a Charger. Those are the 18 starters. The Nissan GT Championship here at Adelaide. The distance 16 laps, and it'll be a dash for that first corner with a lot of powerful cars, not just the leading three but certainly two behind, the Big Jag and Bob Jolly's Commodore, which went so well at Calder last weekend. And also watch Tino Leo on the third row in a Monaro 85. A long straight here should really suit the big legs of the big Holden. Here's the crowd at Adelaide. Race about to start.
Racing in the first heat of the second round Australian GT Championship at Adelaide International Raceway. Big field screaming down the long straight, and off the front of the grid, Alan Grice, Tony Edmondson and Brian Thompson respectively in a Chevy Monza, a Chevy powered Alpha and a Mercedes. And
it's the Alpha first time in fact, a terrific start by Edmondson, who really put the power down. He's smoking a little bit though as Thompson goes on the inside of Grice, but that's the Alpha in front. In pursuit is Grice,
second, yes, then Thompson. There's a lot of smoke from the Alpha, in fact, of Edmondson.
The Jaguar running fourth from the Queensland driver, Mark Trenouth, and a hot field right behind him. But it's the Tasmanian, or former Tasmanian, Tony Edmondson still in the lead. There's the Jaguar Trenouth going through, and the field pouring through the back of the circuit here for the first of 16 laps.
Oh, keep your eye on the leader. A lot of smoke coming from the rear.
It looks a little bit like a leak and may just be oil on the exhaust system or the diff, but it will certainly be worrying the pit, and I suspect there's enough oil there for Edmondson himself to see it. Grice, who was fastest in practice, winding up the big Chev Monza. He may make a move down the straight. There he goes now, side by side. He should have the corner. It depends on braking, and last in on the pedal is Edmondson. He still has the corner. He's still smoking, and he still has Grice right on his tail.
Track marshals will be keeping a close eye on Edmondson's car as well.
Into the pits we have our first car, by
John Briggs in the BMW.
And into the grass we have Edmondson. He's gone wide there. He's lost a lot of places as he goes off the track, bumping his way, trying to pick up the circuit. He'll get bogged there unless he gets back. He doesn't want to... he's going to leave the car. I don't think he can get through. No, he's still going, just trying to fight his way back. What an extraordinary path for him to be taking. Why he just didn't stop where he went off the circuit and came back, I don't know, but he's in a lot of trouble.
Alan
and
Grice.
A long way behind Grice.
Yes, Grice now in the lead from Thompson. Across the start-finish line again goes Alan Grice. 3 seconds quicker than anybody else in practice for this event.
2.5 seconds is the margin between first and second. So Grice seems to have the race comfortably in his hand. He's leading from Thompson and Mercedes, who seems to be fairly comfortable there as well. And in third place we have a Jaguar. So we've got 3 quality cars up in the lead, and the real battle going on for fourth place between Bob Jolly in a Commodore and Tino Leo in a Monaro. Those pairs still scrapping here behind Trenouth, coming through, and just behind them the battle for fourth place.
This is the one between Jolly and Leo for fourth spot. That's Doherty, in fact, Robin Doherty in a Tirana in car 18. And it's Jolly on his tail, so we've led you astray there. It's not Tino Leo at all. I got the 85 and the 18 mixed up. So Doherty in fourth spot. Is he going to hold it here? I don't think so. Jolly goes through. Down into the bottom corner. Jolly's got the line, and he's got fourth place. A lap to go for Alan Grice.
Grice leading from Thompson in the Mercedes, from Trenouth in the Jaguar and Barnes in the Monza. They're the top 4. Reasonably close between first and second, a long gap back to third, and about the same margin between third and fourth. So we have two-car races here at Adelaide International. Grice has done nothing wrong. Put his car in the lead.
3 cars
has stayed there.
3 cars off the front of the grid. Grice from pole position, along with Tony Edmondson and Brian Thompson off the second row. But Edmondson a retirement, leaving Thompson the only one to get anywhere near Grice. But anywhere near is not quite good enough, I'm afraid, because time is running out. Grice is coming around through the Speedway Bowl for the last time, getting ready to take the checkered flag at the end of Heat 1, round 2. the GT Championship. There it goes for Alan Grice, the checkered flag, to take out the first heat from Brian Thompson in the Mercedes, and it will be Mark Trenoweth in a Jaguar XJS who'll cross the line in third place after heat 1. Well, you've seen some of the action from these big bangers, as Evan Green called them. We'll be back to see how they fare in a moment.
Cool to pick up the kids. Brian Thompson just selecting reverse gear for some reason. Let's see if he moves forward again. Yes, he does. Just to make sure he's in exactly the right place and he's in gear properly, I suppose. On the second row of the grid, car 8, Mark Trenoweth, the Queenslander, in the Jaguar XJS, with Bob Jolly in a Commodore alongside him. And on the third row, Robin Doherty in a Tirana and Tino Leo in a Monaro with John Briggs in a BMW. There are only, 14 cars, I think, left to contest this second heat, which is over 16 laps.
There they go. Grice and Thompson dragging down the main straight here at Adelaide International Raceway. And who's this getting through between them?
Jolly it is, I think, in the Commodore, who's made a sensational start from the second row of the grid.
Off the second row to grab the lead. He's in front of Thompson. Grice is third.
Well, Grice didn't make a good start. He's back in third spot. He won the first heat. He leads the championship, but it's Jolly in front. Then Thompson in the Mercedes in second spot. And look at Jolly go. What's he done to the car since the first heat?
I don't know. He was hardly sighted first time round, but now that car is firing unbelievably. And Bob Jolly has given both Grice and Thompson the go-by right at the outset.
Well, he was quick at Calder last week, but he was only 6th in the first heat. But let's see whether he can survive a challenge on the first lap. It's Mercedes and Monza on his tail. Two of the old hands in Australian motor racing, Brian Thompson and Alan Grice behind him. Let's see how it goes when sheer horsepower counts. And there's a lot of horses out there on the track at the moment, but Jolly's got as many as they have. He's staying in front. But on the inside, the Mercedes of Thompson, and right behind him, the Chevy Monza of Alan Grice. And it's second spot for Bob Jolly now, with the Mercedes taking the lead. And that's a sight we haven't seen very often in Australian motor racing. A Mercedes-Benz leaving an Australian championship event. Still then, it's Brian Thompson. Jolly hanging on the second spot. Alan Grice right behind him. And then car number 4 next up.
Coming round onto the Speedway Bowl again, and he's pulling out to quite a good lead now, Brian Thompson over Bob Jolly. Jolly's under a big challenge from Grice. Grice goes through and takes second place. Jolly seemed to lose power there for the moment. In fact, Briggs in the BMW looks like taking him down the main straight.
Briggs in the turbocharged BMW is in 4th place at the moment. Grice in number 4 up there in second and setting up after Mercedes. There's the white BMW on the left of your screen. Jolly in the black Commodore with the gold band across the nose, still in 3rd place, but the BMW has moved up to challenge.
And Grice also moving up on the tail of Brian Thompson's Mercedes to try and mount some sort of a challenge now for the lead. Grice won't like being beaten to the punch off the start line.
Grice has mellowed, though. He's no longer quite the dramatic driver he was. He's a better driver for it. He'd be content to do a bit of stalking, I think. Just leave Thompson there for a while.
Well, when he gets 16 laps, he can afford to take a lap or two to settle down, and he's done that now and setting out in pursuit of the race leader.
And 3rd place now has fallen comfortably to Briggs, who's moved up very close and right on the tail, in fact, of the Monza. Look how Briggs has made up ground.
Mercedes, Monza, BMW.
Briggs taking a line on the inside of the track, off your screen at the moment. He's there, though. You'll see him come flashing in the white car. There he is. Right up.
Grice has got the line, and Grice has got the lead as they go through the bottom turn. Alan Grice, car 4, the Chevy Monza, is in front from Brian Thompson in the Mercedes, and then Briggs in the BMW.
Mark Trenoweth in the Jaguar, who did so well in the first heat, is back in 5th place, trailing behind car number 6, which is Bob Jolly in the Commodore, just out of your screen at the moment.
Action fast and furious in the second heat of the Australian GT Championships here. Alan Grice having hit the front after being beaten to the punch off the start line today, and by gee, they get round this track very, very quickly. In fact, Alan Grice himself will tell you the performance capabilities of this Chevy Monza are pretty frightening.
It's a very complete motor car. It's strongest attributes probably its ability to turn into a corner. One tiny turn on the steering wheel and it fires itself into the corner. And quite frankly, you have to make sure that your mind is well awake as you to turn into the corner at the same speed as the motor car. It's a little bit difficult to get off the line. First gear is 96 mile an hour, and the amount of revs on board as you dump the clutch have got to be pretty precise. But thereafter, it doesn't matter a lot which gear it in, it just goes. It's got great power and 6 litres of Chevy power, off-the-shelf power, if you like. And generally, it's a great motor car to drive. Interestingly, though, with a car, with the bit up its sleeves that it has, if another motor car gets in front of us, very often it's hard to get by them.
And Alan Grice telling it like it is in this big American car. And while he was talking, car 2, the turbocharged BMW of John Briggs, went into the pits. He's out of the race. And the Jaguar of Mark Renault, the Queenslander, has moved up into 3rd place. So now it's Chevy Monza leading from what's happened to Brian Thompson rather than car 17. Have we lost him? I can't see him on the track.
No, he's slowing. He's still in the field, Evan, but he's slowed quite dramatically in the last lap and has been passed by several other cars.
Well, in this case, let me just run through the field quickly for you. It's car 4, which is Alan Grice in the lead. Car 8, Mark Renault in the Jaguar, who now is in 2nd spot. Car number 6, Bob Jolly in the Commodore, 3rd. Car 3, which is Jeff Barnes in another Monza, who's up into 4th place. And in 5th place is car number 85. And where did he come? That's Tino Leo in the Monaro, who was back in the field, but is up there running in 5th spot at the moment.
Brian Thompson, who led and then was 2nd, is now back in 9th spot. Lost power very dramatically on the last lap. So Grice has been left with a very comfortable lead. Got some damage on the front of the car.
Oh, you can see
Thompson.
it. Apparently, he and Brian Thompson have touched a hit, which is why he's out of the race and why Thompson has slowed. So a collision between 2 cars. This one, Brian Thompson, is going very slowly. You can see the damage to the front of his car, and he's just limping around to the pits. He can't keep going like that. And the damage has brought Briggs, who has a much more mangled front to his BMW than the Mercedes, has put them both out of the race. So 2 contenders from Germany, and they're both out of the event. Well, that's sad news for the South Australian Briggs.
9 laps remaining for Alan Grice, and the toughest competition is out of business.
And going into the pits, the man who was running closest to him, Brian Thompson in the turbocharged Mercedes-Benz. The way the car's going, he'll be lucky to get to the pits. He's just crawling round now. You can see the damage to the front, and in fact the tyre may even be flat. It's certainly on the right-hand side, making some strange shapes as it rotates there. Well, the one man who seems to have kept clear of trouble is the man who's leading the race, Alan Grice. The Chevy Monza we saw here last year in the hands of Peter Brock, now owned by Alan Brown of the Recar organisation. Alan Grice is driving it.
In amongst the slower traffic, Grice passing car 23, Wayne Sutton in Turbo Escort. Off the circle and onto the main straight once more. He's got 8 laps to go.
The event is the Australian GT Championship, the second round, the second of 6. There's Brian Thompson's car. You can see for yourself how the wheel has been damaged. The tyres off, and that's, I think, because he's been running on a flat wheel. And you can see the front end damage from his coming together with John Briggs in the BMW. Well, that did neither of them any good at all. Put them both out of the race, and that so often happens when someone attempts a passing manoeuvre, and they were very close together, and unfortunately they've both suffered from it. So the Jaguar is still coming second, car number 8, a long way back to Renault.
18 seconds, in fact, between Grice and the second place getter.
And Bob Jolly in the Commodore in 3rd place, car number 6. GTs and sports sedans running together. They're very highly modified cars in some cases, as you can see. Here's the Jaguar. Doesn't look like your average XJS. Look how low it is. Really very close to the ground. Almost no movement in the suspension at all. So much has this vehicle been lowered. That's the lowest, fattest, widest cat I've seen for a long time. But quick, 5.3 litres in standard form. I think he's enlarged the engine slightly. In fact, on this to about 5.6 litres category. It's a V12. The only 12-cylinder car running in the race. And despite the number of cylinders, still not the biggest car. The biggest engine in the man who's leading. The Chevy Monza has a 6-litre V8, and if that's not producing in excess of 600 horsepower, I would be not surprised but astonished. The Jaguar itself would churning out well over 500, I would say, in a lightweight body. You're allowed to make all sorts of modifications for sports sedans and GTs in this country, and it leads to some of the fastest and most spectacular racing that we've seen. In fact, the outright lap record here at Adelaide International Raceway is held by a Porsche 935 in the same category as these cars last year when Alan Jones appeared at the circuit in a series of match races with Peter Brock. We've got a challenge on here, Gary, in that the Commodore Bob Jolly is closing up on Mark Trenoweth's Jaguar XJS. Not very far behind him, and a real battle developing the second spot. I think we can presume that Alan Grice in the Monza has the race fairly well in his grasp.
Well, the lap record you just mentioned, Evan, is 51.7, and Grice comfortably in front at the moment is circulating in a touch under 54. So I think he figures he's got plenty in reserve. And he's going to leave Mark Trenoweth and Bob Jolly to battle out the second and third place situation.
Jolly, in fact, is 2.7 seconds behind. He was further back than that. He is closing up on the Jaguar. Very much what you might call a homemade car, without being unkind. A car developed locally, one that Jolly himself had quite a hand in developing, against a highly modified Jaguar. Again, not what you'd regard as a factory car, but one that certainly had a more exotic and more expensive beginning than the Commodore. And there's the Chevy Monza, a fairly small American car in basic form, but when you fit it with the biggest engine available and produce it in racing form, when you put an air dam on the front to stop unwanted air getting beneath the car and causing lift, when you put a big tail across the back of the car to give down thrust and to make sure that those wide racing slicks really can transmit all the power that you want, well, then you've got a car like this Chevy with 600-odd horsepower leading the race, the second round of the Australian GT Championship.
Just over 3 laps to go for Alan Grice in the Recar Alan Brown Chevy Monza. I'm surprised, in fact, that Alan Brown is not here for the meeting today, but apparently had a new consignment of Kenworth trucks and his mother-in-law turn up on the doorstep at the same time, and he couldn't decide which one he had to get rid of first.
I thought I saw him here at the meeting just a while ago. Maybe he got rid of both the Kenworth trucks and the other consideration and turned up just to see how Alan Grice was getting on. And if he did, and if that was Alan that I saw, Alan Brown, the news to him, which he can see for himself, is Alan Grice is getting on very well.
First, second and third cars in this race, by the way, were all involved, if you remember seeing it, and if you did see it, you wouldn't forget it. The unbelievable pile-up here in the GT race last year when Peter Brock was driving this car. So the first, second and third cars on the track at the moment were all involved in that huge pile-up.
And for reasons which probably never been completely explained, he turned sideways at the start. It seemed he may just have been touched by a Porsche behind. Whatever it was, it caused probably the biggest pile-up we've seen in this country since that memorable Bathurst years ago, when 1/3 of the field was tangled at the very top of the circuit. Or maybe the year that Dick Johnson won, and there was a shambles at the end of the race that caused the race to be called off. But I don't think there's been a more spectacular nor more photograph shunt than the one that this car precipitated here last year. Well, it's been rebuilt, it's been sold to Alan Brown, it's now been driven by Alan Grice, and he's certainly showing that this comeback is going to be eminently successful. He's leading the Australian GT Series, having won the first round, and all he has to do now is survive another 1.5 laps virtually, and he's going to win the second round. He won the first heat, this is the second heat. The points will be sufficient to give him a nice, handy lead in this Australian Championship. He has 2 laps to go from this point. Grice has 30 points from his first victory. Brian Thompson in the Mercedes has 27. Mark Trenoweth from Queensland in the Jaguar has 24, so 3 states: New South Wales Grice, Victoria Thompson from Capital and Trenoweth from Queensland in the lead in the point score, and they're have been doing pretty well, apart from Brian Thompson.
Thompson's not going to improve on that position, but certainly Mark Trenoweth is going to fare quite well out of this situation with Thompson off the track here in the second heat. Coming round with just over a lap to go for this man, Alan Grice, with a very commanding lead, approaching 25 seconds over the second place getter. Grice coming round to get the last lap board off the top of the circle once more and onto the main straight, the long main straight at which they get up to enormous speeds here in Adelaide. 1 lap to go now for Grice.
Grice just passing Wayne Sutton in an Escort, a turbocharged Escort, car 23. There's quite a variety of cars taking part. And forgive us for not running through the field, but there's not a lot of racing in terms of time. Very hard to cover all the cars on a circuit like this. And it's Grice who's been leading from start to finish. In the first heat, there was a challenge from Tony Edmondson in the V8 Alfa Romeo, but he ran into mechanical troubles during the race, wasn't able to run for the second heat. So Grice has been untroubled to win this race. Didn't lead off, of course. He was stunned by Bob Jolly's start, and I think let Brian Thompson slip in front as well. But Thompson and John Briggs came together. Thompson in the Mercedes Turbo, Briggs in the BMW Turbo. They both went out of the race, and that has left victory in the capable and experienced hands of Alan Grice. An easy win for Grice then. Mark Trenoth, the Queenslander, will come across the line in second spot in the Jaguar, and in third place will be car 6, Bob Jolly in the Commodore.